Good morning from Riverton. Wow, what a week this was. I am 1 week off of my COVID-19 shot. I seem to be doing okay. Eva just had hers a couple days ago. She's doing so-so. And I hear myself coming back. So let me find out where I am here so I can shut up. There we go. Anyway, not much of a structure here for this one like we had on the last one for the live feed. Just I guess some news items, your Q&A. Feel free to use the chat. Feel free to use the phone 1-855 Hi Michi. Remember, if you use the phone, remember to turn down your speakers so we don't hear you twice. So there's a couple ways of getting into us here at this time. Let's see what's happening. FCC did announce today that the new digital notification form has been updated. This is for stations. Mainly, I mean, it's for FM and AM that are running HD. I mean, the changes were to accommodate the new, the new AM MA3 all digital HD, and this was the surprise. They made the changes in CDBS. We were expecting this would be a great opportunity to move the digital notification form from CDBS to LMS. But you think they did that? No. Nope, they didn't. So it's in CDBS, and most of you don't have to worry about that, like I said, unless you're running HD and you need to file a digital notification, which you really very rarely ever have to do. Just when if you are planning on running HD on FM, the FCC allows you to go ahead and turn on your HD. Of course, you need to do some studies first to see if you have any first adjacent channel stations nearby that might cause you to not, to have to run at a lower digital power. If there's no first adjacent channels, then you could run what's called 10 dB below carrier and be able to run basically your digital power of 10% of your analog power. And if there are first adjacent stations, yeah, it's going to go down. And I mean, and the worst case scenario is was it 4% of your analog power would be digital if there's a first adjacent channel station that's knocking on your door. And we do a contour study to figure that out. So that's where we're at on that. So FCC did announce that this morning. So we've got some things going on there. What else is happening here? Just a brief on Auction 109, which is the commercial FM, and for St. Louis, 4 AM allotments are also ready to drop under the hammer for this auction. Right now, the filing window is open for the short form, the FCC Form 175. This is what you fill out. You give them all of your information about your corporation, your organization, or if you're an individual, who are the stakeholders, all that good stuff. And then you specify which allotments you are thinking about bidding on. This is also the opportunity if you want to do the long shot, the non-commercial long shot. You put in if you have an allotment in an area where you might be able to put up a station of that service class, you can, and it's most likely to be like one of the deep rural areas. Go ahead and put in a Form 175 and mark it as non-commercial. You got nothing to lose, because if you're the only one, if your organization's the only one that files, well, guess what? You get it without an auction. But it'll be non-commercial. But again, the reason why we call it a long shot is because there's a good chance that somebody else will also put in a 175 for that allotment. And, we've got speculators out there and people like that. But, it doesn't hurt to try. And so that's why we're kind of pushing in that long shot. Because once a commercial entity wants that, puts in a 175, anything that's non-commercial is automatically trumped out, and you can't change it from non-commercial to commercial after the window. And we won't know who's filed until after the window. Window is open until May 11th. I may have misannounced that a while back as May 9th. It is May 11th. So you got till May 11th at 6 p.m. to file that Form 175, either if you want to participate in the commercial auction or if you want to try the long shot. There's information on the REC website, recnet.com, about the auction as well as the long shot option. Once, the FCC will eventually announce who's filed for what allotments. Upfront payments are due by June 16th. For those who will be participating, there will be a mock auction on July 23rd, and then the actual auction begins on the 27th. And remember, the upfront payments is also your opening bid for the auction, and you can go online we have a link to it on our site to the FCC documents, including the one that shows the allotments that are available for this auction, excuse me, and what the upfront payments are. Anyway, any comments, any questions, anything in the chat, feel free. 1-855-HI-MICHI is also a good place to go. 1-855-HI-MICHI. FCC currently has a notice of proposed rulemaking and a notice of inquiry out on emergency alert system. And in the notice of proposed rulemaking, the basic subjects that are coming up include the wireless emergency alerts. They are proposing to change the name of the presidential alert to a national alert and kind of slightly broadening the scope of the new national alert. And for those of you who remember a couple years ago where we had that controversy during that one EAS test where everyone was complaining because of the name presidential alert, why do I want to receive alerts from the president, and of course, we're in some very turbulent political times. And, we have people on one side not agreeing with the other. And it's just, we are a divided nation right now. And we are still divided. We have a new administration, and yet we're more divided than ever. But still, the FCC, I think, the FCC and FEMA are trying to do some damage control, I think, on that whole thing. And so they're changing the name from presidential to national and such. And that's what they're proposing. They're also pushing states to assign state emergency communications coordinator. Some states don't even have a state emergency coordinator. And they have some very weak EAS plans. And so these states and territories, got to include Guam and American Samoa and them in this, that they've got to, everybody's got to get off their tush. And we need to have some real organization. Now, the state plans, the state ES plans is also a matter of contention over here because the FCC is wanting to make those documents confidential. And the problem that I have with that is that if you make the monitoring assignments confidential, the harder it would be for stations to be able to get information on their monitoring assignments. They would have to either go through a state broadcasters association, who some of them are very hostile towards LPFM stations. Some of them discriminate against LPFMs by not allowing them to have full membership, but associate membership. In all fairness, there are some broadcasters associations, including the Maryland, Delaware, D.C. Broadcasters Association that doesn't even allow non-commercials of any size to be members. So, you know, why, either that or the state emergency coordinators are going to be bugged. But people like myself, other consultants, other people like that need to have access to this data. At least we don't care about what happens. We don't really necessarily care about what happens behind the scenes. We don't care about what happens when things go from the primary entry point to the lead primary, to the state primary, state relays, and all that. All we care about is what counties have what LP1, LP2 stations. That's what we care about. What are the stations required to monitor? And that's information that should not have to be confidential. EAS is a mess. And we'll talk about that in a second. Other parts of the notice of proposed rulemaking is regarding the reporting of false alerts. And, the FCC and FEMA are so paranoid over the false alerting, with the high, they want to make sure that everything that comes in and out of their systems are authenticated and all that. And, and the problem was that the last major incidents of false alerting that took place was not because of unauthenticated hackers. It was because of authenticated, authorized users clicking the wrong option. And of course, I'm referring to the incoming missile attack emergency warnings that we had in Hawaii a couple years ago. They also want to do the national alerts messages. They want the ability to be able to repeat the messages. So they're looking at the technical ways of doing that. The comment period's already closed on this. We're currently in reply comments. REC did file comments in this proceeding, basically stating that, number one, we addressed our concerns again regarding the confidential nature of state plans. And we also said that whatever you guys do, this cannot result in another hardware, software, or firmware change for stations, especially decode-only small stations with limited stretched budgets that just simply cannot afford another software or firmware upgrade. So we need to make sure that whatever is done by FEMA, because remember, like I've said before, every time FEMA sneezes, you pay. That's got to stop. I'm not hip on these on this stuff about about having to pay every time that there's an upgrade. Now, of course, some of the manufacturers are kind of doing this little future-proofing thing that says, we'll cover you for so long, and such, upgrade to version 4, pay us $500, upgrade to version 4, and then suddenly they might come out with an excuse. The FCC and FEMA changed something. This is going to require us to have to take you to version 5. Now you got to upgrade to version 5, and if you don't by this certain date, your box will stop working. I just don't like the predatory aspect of the EAS industry, especially on the decode-only stations, the LPFMs, the LPTVs, and the small cable companies that are not required to have encode. They're at the end of the food chain. They're at the end of the EAS food chain. They deserve a break. Very interesting notice of inquiry. That's coming up here on EAS. They want to be able to allow EAS to be used by streaming providers. Yes, streaming providers. And, of course, REC is very qualified to discuss that because of our involvement with J1 Radio, Riverton Radio Project's involvement with Delmarva FM. So we're definitely going to be putting out some of that, and especially since J1 Radio is currently doing emergency alerting from Japan. So we're already doing a form of emergency alerting. And so we'll be talking about that. And the key issues there is that the open system needs to be more open. They need to have better, more public ways of receiving the alerts. You can keep the back end as locked up as you want, fully authenticated and rock solid, but there needs to be more of a public view at the front end without having to go through this whole memorandum of understanding process, and it's a mess. And so that's one of the things we're pushing for. And of course, that leads us to the conversation that always comes up out of REC when it comes to EAS lately: open source and the ability for decode-only stations to be able to use EAS solutions. And I think my video's dropping out a little bit there. To be able to use the EAS solutions that do not require encoding. Yeah, it looks like we're dropping packets here. There we go. Anyway, decode-only stations should be allowed to be able to monitor EAS through open source methods as long as it's CAP formatted, as long as it's CAP, as long as IPAW's open, as well as 2 over-the-air monitoring sources are monitored. As long as you're following the EAS plan, there should be no requirement that you have to have a box that was sent to a lab and the cost was artificially inflated 2 to 3 times in order to, in order to be able to be authorized for, for this. Decode only. Here we go. Trying to understand your comment there. LPFM stations are not required to encode, not required to have an EAS encoder where they can originate the alerts. They're only required to have a decoder, so that way they can pick up the alerts from the LP1, LP2 stations, as well as from CAP, from Open IPAWS. So that's what we've got there. So that's why I always say LPFM stations are at the end of the food chain where it comes to this part. 1-855 hi Michi, and or on the chat. We're going to probably shoot for about 11, maybe 11:15 or 11:30 hard stop here. Depends on where the conversation goes. We may end early. We may end very early. Who knows? Let's see. Anything else going on? Questions have come up in regards to the NCE window and also concerns from LPFM stations. Of course, the big question we always get is, okay, let's hope this stays green. Because green is good. Green means go. Looks like we lost the connection there, so we're back. Go good old Comcastic. We did have some wins a while back, so maybe that's part of the reason. So LPFMs are not required to buy a Sage digital NDEC. What gear can they get? They are required to buy a device. They are required to buy an EAS decoder that is FCC certified. So Sage NDEC, a DAS deck from Digital Alert Systems, which is what we have here in the lab here at REC, the Trilithic. These are all EAS decode. You know, they're all. If you have an EAS encoder decoder, that's okay, as long as it has decoding capability. But you do have to have a certified piece of equipment. You do have to have something with an FCC ID on it. That is required. So whether you go with, one of those three brands or, one of the others out there that is a certified EAS piece of equipment. What you can't do is like somehow or another drum up some device that has, that is able to maybe pick up on the alert tone and then trigger your audio, or pick up on the weather radio and trigger your audio. You can't do that. You also have to keep logs. Your ES boxes have logs in them. And you need to, every week, you need to check those logs. And you need to check those logs for the required weekly or monthly test to make sure that you're getting your RWTs or your RMTs from both, from your monitoring assignments over the air, as well as from iPause Open, otherwise known as CAP. So you need to make sure that you're getting your, you need to make sure you're getting your weekly tests. And so that way, if there's, if this is a good way to identify whether you have a weak receiver, maybe an antenna got out of alignment or something. The DAS deck has a mode on there that I can go into, and it will, it'll sample the radios, and it will tell me whether the signal is good or not. It'll tell you strong, weak, so-so, mediocre, I don't know. But, I use that. I could use that. Right now, we have a little antenna in the attic here that we use for receiving. I use that actually for receiving both EAS and for nearby over-the-air TV. And so sometimes, I might have to twist or turn that thing, or... it's in the attic, so sometimes it may get twisted if we got a walk-in attic. It's kind of an attic that is on the same level that we're on here on the upstairs. Maybe it's more like a storage room, I guess you could say, an unfinished storage room. And that's where I have the antenna right now. And it works mediocre. Would love to have eventually, maybe when we get a tower here, eventually, maybe one of these days, need some people to come out here and build a tower for me. That we might just put an OTA receive antenna up there too, just to see what we pick up. Maybe we'll be lucky and we'll pick up Baltimore, or better yet, DC. I'd love to be able to pick up the DC stations here over the air. That would be sweet. So that's where we're at on that. I am basically, I'm working. Actually, I'm starting to write the comments right now for the notice of inquiry, and looking at this from the eyes of a small streamer. Like I explained in these comments, there's really two different types of streamers that are really out there. There's large streamers and there's small streamers. There's also live streaming and on-demand streaming. And, the big names out there, the Sirius XMs, the Pandoras, the Spotifys, for the matter, YouTube, Twitch. These are all large streamers. And then you've got the small fries like J1. It's a lot of the community radio stations that run their own, that stream into their own server, their own Shoutcast or Icecast server, and put it out to the world. So you've got two different brands of streaming that's out there. And so what we want to make sure is, that all sides are heard. The key thing is we do not want any kind of requirement that streamers have to participate in EAS, regardless of the size of the streaming organization. They should never be required to participate in EAS. One of the other issues that we're bringing up is the fact that in order for, this may be different in other parts of the country, but for the areas that we monitor, which is the Delmarva region, so basically counties in Maryland, Virginia, and Delaware, as well as the counties in Southern California, which we also monitor off the same box. There is very little to no alerts coming through iPause Open through the internet connection, other than monthly tests and weekly tests. We do not, I think the most that we've received through Open iPause is maybe 2 Amber alerts in a year. And that's from Maryland as well as from California. And the problem is that the system would be useless if more alerts are not going through this other method. If you're wanting to bring streamers and other non-traditional broadcast entities into participating voluntarily in EAS. Now, I'm in the process right now, it's kind of a side project right now, of building an interface to my DAS deck that would allow me to take anything that comes through Open iPause for Southern California and put it out over J1, because J1 does have a high volume of listeners in Southern California as well as in Tokyo. Although folks in Tokyo won't care, but then again, we send earthquake alerts from Japan around the world on J1. So, I mean, it kind of works both ways. But when your tornado warnings are not going through the iPause Open system and they're just going over the air, and by the time your station gets it over the air, it is like a 4th generation voice synthesized with a loud subaudible, very audible subaudible tone in the background, DC hum, and narrow telephone bandwidth, for the, basically picking up off the VHF 162 megahertz weather radio frequency. The average listener will not understand what the hell is going on. And that's the problem that we have right now with EAS is, we've had tornado warnings here in the past year in Delmarva. And the recordings that come through, first of all, they don't repeat the information. They just send the information through. And it's not very precise. And then it's not repeated. It's usually just da-da-da-da-da. Okay, and by the way, make sure that you stay in your basement. You stay away from windows, stay away from desks, stay away from yada yada. The whole spiel. I mean, but it would be nice if the damn message would say afterwards again where the alert was. It doesn't, and it's that crappy voice that unless you are a Maryland crabber and you're going out on the river or you're going out on Chesapeake Bay every day with your boat and then you get that weather in the morning, then you understand and you're able to pull out that voice. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch Deadliest Catch. You'll hear it on there. So that's where we're at on that. So we're going to be pushing for those alerts to go over cap iPause open, including the text of those announcements, because there's actually a benefit even for TV broadcasters and for persons with disabilities. There's a side benefit to that if they're able to get those text alerts into open iPause. So there is that. And I would love to see him just be able to do that. Let's see. 1-855 Michi. If anybody has any questions. Anyway, I wanted to get on the subject of the NCEs and some concerns that were expressed. And this came from the LPFM Tech Advice Group, I believe. And a question came up there. What if we have an LPFM on 92.3, and what will happen if somebody files for a full service station in the window? Are we going to get displaced? We put out an advisory letter on this a while back. For LPFMs, for the NCE window, if you're on 92.3, you don't have anything to worry about. If you're on 92.1, then you would have concerns. But if you're on 92.3, there's no concerns, because the process for displacement, which is 73809A of the rules, basically states that if a full service station, either a new station or modified station, makes a change that results in your interfering contour, and that would be 40 dB for co-channel, 54 dB for first adjacent channel. If that interfering contour overlaps into either the 70 dB contour of the full service facility, not the 60 or the 54, the 70, otherwise known as the community coverage contour in the commercial world, otherwise known by some as a city grade contour. If those contours overlap, then you've got a possible triggering event. Also, if the interfering contours overlap into the community of license, the corporate limits, the city limits of the community of license for the modified or new facility, then you have a potentially triggering event. These are the only times, and it's only co and first adjacent channel, not second or third. It's only co and first. Now, that second situation with the city of license, that will happen more on the non-commercial side, because a non-commercial station is only required to provide 60 dB coverage to at least 50% of the 50% of the population of their designated city of license. So if your 40 dB is on the same if you're 54 dB, I'm going to use 54 because first adjacents are going to be able to survive a little better. We've got a 54 dB situation here on Delmarva, and no one has complained. But if your 54 dB is touching the city limits, and you've got an NCE that is on the first adjacent channel, doesn't put any coverage in that specific area, but does cover at least 50% of the community to get that as their city of license, they could trigger displacement. Now, that's the key thing, too. Displacement under 73809A is not automatic. It's not a situation where the FCC says, uh-oh, you're in the wrong place, you got to go. No. What happens is that the FM station, the full service station, would have to file a complaint and basically state that this LPFM station is inside their 70 dB contour, and we want them gone. And at that point, now this is different than the translator rules. You don't need a minimum number of listener complaints. All you need is that contour overlap and the full service. It's at the full service station's discretion whether they want you there or not. So what do? Well, if there is another channel available, you may have to move. I don't think we've ever had this happen in the 20 years of LPFM. I don't think that we've ever had a full service station get up and say, you got to go. I think we've seen situations where a full service station will modify, and the LPFM on their own will either cease operation if they have nowhere else to go, or they would file for a change to another channel. And you can file for a change for another channel if something like that happens, as long as that channel is available under 73807. So if it requires a second adjacent waiver, you'll need to get the second adjacent waiver. There's a possibility you could move. One of the things I would look at under this, one of the situations we could look at, which has not been tested, is the use of the LPFM station, maybe adding a directional antenna in these situations. Let's say you're blocked by a mountain or something, and there's terrain, and it's your first adjacent or even your co-channel, and your 40 barely touches their 70. That full service station is maybe a Saga or a Hubbard or somebody else who, or Red Wolf or somebody else who's got a bug up their behind and wants you out of there. The big question, and this has not been submitted to the FCC yet because the situation has never come up. But with the new directional antenna rule, can I use a directional antenna, even just the directional characteristics of my existing side-mounted BKG 77, for example, and basically bring my 40 or 54 dB contour more in, so that way it's no longer an overlap? Can I do that to avoid a 73809 if it's a situation where the two stations can kind of live in harmony anyway because of terrain and other factors? So those obviously this has never come up, but that's what goes through my mind when I see this stuff. Let's do this. Last call, 1-855 hi Michi, 1-855 HIMICHI. Any questions? Feel free to drop them into the chat. EAS and NCE, whatever alphabet soup you want to do today. Any other questions that you have regarding LPFM, where we're going, where we came from? Any just day-to-day questions that have come up? Question did come up regarding the renewal of STL's studio to transmitter links, and in the past, those were when you renewed your license for your station, that also renewed your STLs. There is a known bug in LMS where LMS is not sending the renewals to ULS, which is the system that handles the licensing for the STLs and such. That was something we knew about like back in June of last year. We haven't received any updates on that. I have not followed up on any renewals yet to see if any renewals with those are now flowing through. So if you have STLs, if you're using STLs, if you're using remote pickup frequencies, 450 frequencies, make sure that you're checking those license call signs in the universal licensing system at the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau at the FCC to make sure that the licenses are all updating and such. I don't think there's an issue. I mean, it's basically general policy that when you when you renew your license for your station, that it automatically upgrades all of your auxiliary licenses. And so therefore, and of course, most of you don't have STLs. Most of you don't have remote pickups. You don't have to worry about this. But for those few of you who do, that's how that works. 1-855 hi Michi, or questions in the chat. Let's see, anything else going on here today in the lovely world of the FCC? No, nothing too interesting going on right now. Nothing that I can see. Not even much interesting coming on FCC today. So, it's a typical Friday. I think everybody has taken off. Maybe America is picking up on the Golden Week. We're right now in Golden Week in Japan. This is a time, what they do is they stack several. This is a smart thing they do in Japan. They take several holidays and they basically schedule them through various days of the week throughout a 1 week period. So that way, it is a way to justify giving everybody a week off. A week off of work. When you in Japan, during normal times, during non-pandemic normal times, one of the worst times to go to Japan is during Golden Week. Because if you live there, those who live there are going to be crowding on trains going out of Tokyo. And what's going to be left, half of the stuff will be closed anyway, because everybody's out of town for the Golden Week holidays. So this is the time not to go to Japan, if this was a non-pandemic situation. So with that, everybody please be safe. Keep wearing the masks, even if you've been vaccinated. Things will be a little easier. It's gonna get better as we go along. Things will recover. We are working on some things. We'll be doing some systems work this weekend. I need to address some issues with some of the quality of service that's come out of REC recently. We've got some process issues we need to deal with where it comes to applications being filed. And this is an issue. I am aware of it. We need to come up with a better way of handling things. We need to have a better way of handling incoming emails. This is something we'll be working on. And as always, if you need any assistance, please give me a call at 844-REC-LPFM, 1-844-REC-LPFM, 202-621-2355, 202-621-2355. Renewals are due by June 1st for Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Wyoming, and Idaho, and Nevada. And that's due on June 1st. So get your renewals in soon as you can. We're going to start sending the bills out on the renewals that were sent through the EZform. We're going to start sending those out probably sometime next week. The EZform is ezform.recnet.net. You can use that for filing your renewals. If you are within 90 days of an expiration, you can file your renewal request through EZform. In most cases, as long as you don't have a silent station or anything else that needs an exhibit, no notices of violation, If it's what we call a clean renewal, it's $100 if you do it through EZform. As long as you do it while the EZform system is open. Now, if you get with me on the last day, yeah, it's going to cost you a little more. But so there's that. You can also use the EZform there for doing a show of interest for the NCE window. Now, another thing that you can do now is if you use the NCE search, which is recnet.com/NCE-search, you can, if you pull up a location and there's channels available, scroll all the way down to the bottom. There's a little button you can push. That button will actually open up EZforms, and it will actually pre-fill that location information in there. So as you go through the flow, because one of the things it asks you for is, do you have any sites picked out? And you'll see in there that the site is pre-filled in. So, technology. It's great. Fun. Wow. All right, last call before we kill it. Any questions, anything, feel free to drop them in the chat. Nothing heard, nothing seen. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. So that way, you know, you get notified anytime that we do this. Hopefully we'll have some more news on the next one that we do. I'm trying to do these on a regular basis again. So that way, at least if there's questions on anybody's mind, you can get them out and we can talk about them. And that's the fun part about doing this whole thing. So with that, we'll be back in probably about a week or so. And until then, like I said, everyone, stay safe, and we'll chat soon.